apărarea Europei, relația cu Statele Unite, de care depinde securitatea europeană, negocierile pentru un armistițiu în Ucraina, dar mai ales amenințarea constantă pe care o reprezintă Federația Rusă. Cum vor naviga țările Uniunii Europene printre aceste chestiuni majore? Se va păstra unitatea la nivel european în fața unor provocări atât de complexe? Primim exclusiv răspunsuri de la unul dintre cei mai activi diplomați ai UE, Radoslaw Sikorski, ministrul de externe al Poloniei. Sunt Cristina Cileacu, începe Pașaport Diplomatic. Radoslaw Sikorski, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland, welcome to Diplomatic Passport.
Hello.
Minister, 2030 is the end date you gave to Europe till maybe it will be attacked by Russia. We are, of course, talking about a country that is struggling to resist to Ukraine for the last 3 years. Is Russia able actually to attack Europe? Can Putin afford such an attack?
Well, I'm glad you jump right into it. And yes, you're right. Russia is not winning in Ukraine. 3 years into the war, they're still fighting in Donbass. And Ukraine successfully neutralized the Russian Navy in the Black Sea, as you know better than we do. But if Putin managed to prevail and assumed control over Ukraine's human, industrial, and military resources, then the calculus would change. And also remember that the Russians have put their economy on a wartime footing, and they're actually producing more than the rest of Europe, which is on peacetime footing. So we don't know how long Russia will be able to sustain that effort. But if she were able to sustain it till the end of the decade, then the threat would become real. And we need to counter that threat by ceasing to consume the peace dividend, and it doesn't apply to Romania or Poland, but it applies to Western Europe, by putting our means where our mouths are, which is to say invest serious money in defense so that we can successfully deter Vladimir Putin so that we protect the peace.
And if such a possible attack will come from the Russian Federation towards any European country, which countries do you think Putin will have in mind?
Well, I don't want to speculate, but the hybrid war is on already. And by hybrid war, I don't mean just some blocking of web pages or a bit of misinformation. Hybrid war means war below the threshold of an actual military clash. But it has physical consequences. The Russians are doing murders, the Russians are doing arson, they are doing espionage, and they are doing sabotage. And this is already, people are already dying, and the security of our critical infrastructure is already affected. Just last month, a Polish hospital was attacked by cyber means, and it meant that if there was a casualty that couldn't be serviced on time, someone would die. So we are taking countermeasures already. I've restricted Russian diplomats to just the province around Warsaw. We've closed down one of their consulates. And we are investing in our defense because we have learned for the last 500 years that when the Russians threaten us, we have to take it seriously.
Do you think Russia will try to test NATO in order to see if Article 5 works?
It's possible. Western Europe didn't believe that Putin would invade Ukraine. He himself publicly denied that he would. It wasn't rational. He started the war, he invaded on false super optimistic assumptions, and therefore we can't be certain that he will again not miscalculate and test our resolve.
Poland, Romania and Turkey have a habit, it's quite long already, to meet in this trilateral form.
Yeah, we met last year.
Absolutely. Probably we will have meetings as well this year. We are talking about Poland that is investing in defense, as you said. We're talking about Turkey, which is the second biggest army in NATO. What is Romania's role in this? Because our army is not that strong, but in the same time we do have the longest border with Ukraine and we do have the Black Sea part.
Turkey, as you say, has a large army, but Poland's defense budget is actually bigger now.
Yeah.
And our procurement budget is bigger yet, because 52% of our defense budget is spent on new weapons. And Romania is the other country on the flank of NATO that is capable of being an exporter of security, that provides stability to others. You are a logistical hub for the assistance to Ukraine. We are a logistical hub. You are an important country in the Black Sea. There are, as you know, these acts of sabotage in the Baltic Sea. Together, we are indispensable guardians of the external border of both NATO, Schengen zone, and the European Union. And we feel, after talks with your Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, I can say that we have won on this, that European solidarity with us guarding the external perimeter of Schengen zone should find its institutional and financial expression. We are protecting the rest of Europe from threats, from illegal migration and military threats as well.
And that means what for the Western to, I don't know, invest more in this part of the world?
Well, we should spend on defense in proportion to our means, in proportion to GDP, but the capabilities should be built where the threats are. And the threats are in the neighborhood of Poland and Romania.
There are ongoing negotiations for truce in Ukraine. US is the broker, but looks like is pushing a lot Ukraine and pampering the Russian Federation. Do you think that is the correct way to see these negotiations?
I would personally have preferred for it to happen otherwise. You know, have a secret negotiation to see if the red lines of the two countries are closer together and whether a deal is possible. But Ukrainians tell me that they are grateful to President Trump for creating a new atmosphere and for talks to be possible, and provided that their red lines are respected, they hope it will lead to something.
Because what we read in the media after this negotiation is completely different than what you hear from Ukrainians. So is the truth which one?
By the fruits you shall judge them. If we have this ceasefire in the Black Sea, that would be a good thing. If we have a ceasefire in attacking each other's energy infrastructure, that would be a good thing. If that leads to a ceasefire on land, and if that leads to serious negotiations about a secure long-term peace, then it will be a success. And if it doesn't, it won't.
Speaking about the Black Sea truth that is also negotiated, looks like the Americans had one vision and the Russians had a different one. Is it possible after these negotiations to see Russia rebuilding its capabilities, its power in the Black Sea?
Of course they will try. Whether they can do it on an economic base that is being damaged by this war effort is another issue. But I think the possibility of the truce in the Black Sea shows that the Russians agree to negotiate reasonably when they've lost the battle. Nobody 4 years ago would have expected Ukraine to have done so much damage to the Russian Black Sea fleet. So they respond to a military reality which in the Black Sea favors Ukraine.
And what do you think Turkey's role will be in the Black Sea? Because they are always negotiating. Of course, they are a NATO country. Their relationship with the Russians, it's very practical.
Well, Turkey, of course, has a vital role in guarding the Montreux Convention and the movement of ships, including military ships, through the Bosphorus. Turkey also is the country which took in millions of refugees from Crimea, first in the 19th century and then in the 20th century. So Turkey has no illusions about Russia's imperialistic colonial policy towards Ukraine. And in that sense, Turkey could be very helpful in an operation to secure a hypothetical peace.
While we are recording this interview in Bucharest, in Paris there are European leaders, and not only Europeans, meeting for a coalition of the willing under the patronage of the French President Emmanuel Macron. To use a question that was already posed by the Belgian Prime Minister, we are willing, but willing for what exactly?
It's a legitimate question. Because we don't yet know what the terms of the peace might be, and therefore what there will be to guard. And I'm glad to say, after my conversations with the government of Romania, that actually Poland instinctively have a similar attitude, namely, first of all, to let those who were first to declare the sending of troops to Ukraine, France, Britain, others, to gather the coalition of the willing. And I think both of our countries want to be part of the operation, part of the reassurance for Ukraine, but we think that guarding the logistical hubs in both countries is our first task.
The negotiations between Ukraine and Russia are, as I said, brokered by United States, and Europe is not at the table. Looks like it's not going to be invited as well. Do you think at some point Americans will ask Europe to join the discussions? I'm
confident that they will have to, because Ukraine had received assurances and security guarantees before, under the Budapest Memorandum, under the Ukrainian-Russian border treaty, and they proved to be empty. So Ukraine will not buy another set of paper guarantees or assurances. Ukraine will need to be reassured that any peace that is negotiated is for good. And if the United States doesn't want to send troops into Ukraine, then Europe is the only place that is available. And if they ask us to fulfill this, I believe, essential element of any peace solution, then we'll be at the table. And
what if they go by what Russia is saying, that they will not accept ever NATO troops or NATO countries' troops on Ukrainian soil?
Well, Vladimir Putin is making all kinds of outrageous demands, and this is one of them. The whole point of this war is that it is Ukraine which should decide what foreign troops, if any, should be on Ukraine's territory, and not Russia.
What shall we see in the United States right now when it comes to security of Europe? A partner or a foe?
Well, come on. That's a provocative question.
It is a provocative question.
Not just a partner, a good ally. And Romania and Poland, again, are of the same mind. We both have Aegis on shore, anti-missile bases on our territory. We both have American troops on our territory, and we both welcome them. And we think that our countries should be good allies with the United States, irrespective of who is in charge, either in Bucharest and Warsaw or in Washington.
Of course, we have to invest more in the European defense. How shall we do it? Because we are already NATO allies, most of us in European Union. We want to invest more in defense. Shall we do it with NATO, separate? How shall we participate to these projects?
I think we should hear what the Americans are telling us. And this is that they have duties in other areas around the globe, in the Pacific, and that there may be circumstances in which they might not be able to help us, and therefore we have to become more self-reliant. A good way of doing it would be to have a deal with the United States that in such a case we should be capable of resisting lower order threats on our own, so that the burden of global leadership is shared between Europe and the United States. There's a lot of noise, but that's essentially it. And the first precondition is that we should spend more money, and Poland and Romania
are willing.
Have done it before others. But the second is that we should map the landing zone in 5, maximum 10 years, where Europe should be, so that the United States feels that we are carrying the burden, but also so that we can act autonomously. It could be as a European pillar of NATO, using NATO's command structures, or on say, some emergency in the Balkans or in Northern Africa. I can personally imagine us acting also as the European Union.
And how much time do we need for this plan to become a reality?
Well, I think
this is a proposal, there is no plan yet.
You're right that we've seen false dawns before. You know, after the wars of the Yugoslav succession, Europe was promising itself an expeditionary force of 30, 50,000 troops. Nothing came of that. Then we had the concept of battle groups. They've never been used. Now we have, supposedly, in a couple of years' time, we are supposed to have a rapid reaction capacity, a brigade with enablers. And this is the minimum. By the end of the decade, we should be capable of deterring Vladimir Putin.
And how shall we look towards Russia and Vladimir Putin if good news will come for Ukraine? I mean, we will have a truce first of all, and then maybe peace talks with a lot of success.
Well, we clearly cannot trust a single word of Vladimir Putin's. We tried to embrace Russia. The West included Russia in Council of Europe, G7, various other institutions, OSCE, and Russia broke the principles of all these institutions, including the UN Charter. So everything they say now has to be verified, because they lie. They lied about the troops in Crimea, they lied about not invading Ukraine. Vladimir Putin's ambition of becoming a great figure in Russia's history through this primitive notion of restoring the Russian Empire is unacceptable. We were both victims of Russian colonialism in the 19th century. The time of European colonialism is over, buried. This may not happen again, and therefore we need a peace and a way of managing the peace that will deter Russia in future.
And what to do with the hybrid wars that Russia is implementing all over Europe?
Well, first of all,
looks like it's gaining it.
First of all, we should do what our security service, our counterintelligence services have already agreed that should be done. We should restrict Russian diplomats to only the countries to which they are accredited, so that they cannot service agents in other countries. And we should take robust action when they conduct either influence or sabotage operations on our territory. This is completely unacceptable behavior. We don't do stuff like that in Russia, so why should we tolerate their activities in Europe?
Under all these pressures we feel in Europe and all over the world as well, do you think that the European unity will hold?
It's becoming more difficult. We are very displeased by the fact that one country is holding up the disbursement of refunds for the equipment that we've delivered to Ukraine from the European Peace Facility. Perhaps when we have so many members, perhaps the application of unanimity should not apply, for example, to sanctions. I think enlargement should forever be governed by unanimity. But maybe sanctions or maybe issues to do with defense should be unanimity minus. We certainly
minus a few countries that usually are pro-Russia.
We cannot make Europe more resilient when the effort is sabotaged by one country.
Your visit here in Romania has what results?
I can report to my Prime Minister that Poland and Romania are not only close strategic partners, but that we are like-minded on the most important issues of the day, and that both economically, culturally, and in the defense sphere, we are indispensable partners and allies for each other, and we should do much more in this relationship than hitherto.
Minister Sikorski, thank you so much for this interview. Atât pentru astăzi, dar rămânem în continuare online pe pagina de Facebook a emisiunii și pe conturile noastre de X și Instagram. Revenim cu subiecte noi din lumea diplomației și a politicii externe, vinerea viitoare de la 11:30 și reluare sâmbătă după miezul nopții. La revedere!